Okay, I have one last set of tricks I want to show you for working with conditions. There's just so many different variations we get into when we're working with conditions. So I have a couple more tricks I want to show you. Sometimes you can combine conditions with an and instead of nesting if statements. So I'm taking a different scenario this time. Let's say you've got a university or a college and you're trying to calculate which students have made the honor roll. Typically, making the honor roll or a dean's list or principal's list requires having a certain average, a grade point average of a certain level, but it might also have a requirement of maintaining all your grades above a certain level as well. So your lowest grade cannot be lower than 70%, and your overall average has to be 85% or higher. So I can do this by nesting if statements. We learned how to do nesting if statements. I say if the GPA, your grade point average, is greater than or equal to 85%, 0.85, then let's check your lowest grade. If your lowest grade is greater than or equal to 0.7, then that means you've met both requirements. Well done, you've made the honor roll. But I could rewrite this using an and statement, because what I'm really saying is there's two requirements here. Both those requirements have to be met for you to make the honor roll. That's what ands are for. So I can simply say if the GPA is over 85 and your lowest grade is greater than or equal to 70%, then well done, you've made the honor roll. And it's a little bit easier to read, and again, you don't have that risk of accidentally making a mistake with indenting your code. So it reduces the chance of introducing errors by forgetting to indent something. The way and statements are processed is both conditions must be true for the condition to be evaluated as true. So if we go back to this, if we had a GPA that was not over 85, let's say your GPA was 70%, well, then you are not going to make the honor roll. If your lowest grade is a 60%, you don't make the honor roll. So having one or the other isn't good enough. Both conditions have to be met for the operation to be considered true and the statement print well done to execute. Another neat trick that comes up sometimes, especially when you get to really complicated if statements, is it's useful to use a Boolean flag, because there might be 2 or 3 places in your code where you need to make that check. So rather than writing the same if statement 2 or 3 times, especially if it's complicated and you worry you might make mistakes, or even just for readability, what you can do is you can create a Boolean flag to remember what happened in the other if statement. So in this case, I can say, hey, let's check if that GPA and lowest grade requirement was met. And if it was, I create this variable called honor roll and I set it to true. So in Python, when it sees that word true, and there's no quotation marks around the word true, this is actually a keyword in Python. That makes this a Boolean variable, and it can either be equal to true or it can be equal to false. So I say if the conditions are met, set honor roll to true, otherwise set honor roll to false. Then you can have all kinds of code executing, and somewhere later in your code, when you need to say, oh, that's right, if they're on the honor roll, I need to send them their congratulatory letter, then I just say if honor roll, print well done, or print them their congratulatory letter. So I don't have to rewrite all that complicated logic. By the way, you will sometimes see code that says if honor roll equals true. You don't need to do that in Python. It's actually frowned upon. You should just be saying if honor roll, because honor roll in itself is true or false. So in terms of Python coding standards, you want to just say if honor roll, not if honor roll equals true. Both will work, but this is the accepted convention. So now we have some new options and lots of different ways to handle very complex conditions in your code. And I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again because it bears repeating. When you start getting into complex conditions, really do your unit testing well. Test all the possible combinations of conditions, otherwise you're going to introduce errors in your code.